It's been nearly 30 years since Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut was first released. This extraordinary work may not be the director's greatest film, but it's certainly the most talked about. The film's mystery deepened when Kubrick passed away from a heart attack just 6 days after completing the final cut. With hidden details in every frame, Eyes Wide Shut invites viewers to interpret its meaning in different ways. But in this video, instead of diving into the film's dense symbolism, we'll focus on how the story moves between reality, dreams, and fantasy. So let's open our eyes wide shut and begin. Could it all be a dream? And if so, how much does that really matter? The film is adapted from a novel called Traum Nouvelle, which translates to dream story. Even before we see the movie, we're introduced to the idea that the narrative might be largely detached from reality. But that alone isn't enough to convince us. Kubrick came across the novel nearly 30 years before he ever made the film. In this novel set in 1920s Vienna, Dr. Fridolin, just like Bill in the film, leaves home after an argument with his wife. From that moment on, it becomes clear that everything that follows is a dream, or at least not entirely real. It's worth noting that the argument in the book also involves mutual confessions about the couple's fantasies and desires, much like in the film. At the time Kubrick was working on A Clockwork Orange, he expressed his deep appreciation for Traum Nouvelle, but mentioned that the book was difficult to define. It explores the sexual contradictions within a seemingly happy marriage, and places fantasies and possibilities on the same level as reality. Inspired by the novel, Kubrick spent years developing an idea about the power of dreams and fantasies, and how they matter just as much as reality. At this point, whether something is a dream, reality, or fantasy doesn't really change the direction of that search. Instead, Kubrick blends them together, letting them exist in the same space. There have been many mornings when we felt disappointed after realizing a moment we wanted to last was just a dream, or relieved when we realized it was only a dream. At the most basic level, the dreams we want to continue reveal our deepest desires, while the ones we want to end expose our hidden fears. As highlighted in one of the most important lines from Eyes Wide Shut, no dream is ever just a dream. According to Freud, dreams are reflections of our unconscious thoughts. When we are awake, social norms and everyday reality keep us from confronting our deeper thoughts and, more importantly, our desires. While Freud often links dreams to sexual impulses, Jung takes a broader view. Even though they approached dreams differently, they agreed on one thing: dreams act as a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. So now, let's look at Eyes Wide Shut through the lens of the novel it's based on, Kubrick's relationship with that novel, and psychoanalysis itself. The summer of '97. Bill and Alice, along with their daughter Helena, take a family trip to Cape Cod. While there, Alice notices a Navy officer in the lobby. The way she looks at him doesn't go unnoticed by Bill. That moment lingers in Bill's mind, settling deep into his subconscious, waiting to resurface. About 5 months pass, and this is where the film begins. Bill and Alice are invited to a high-class party, hosted by their wealthy friend Victor. At the party, we witness Bill flirting with 2 women, while Alice is flirting with another man. That night, Bill runs into Nick Nightingale, an old friend from med school. While Victor is having a secret encounter upstairs, Bill tends to Mandy after she overdoses, but his mind remains on Alice, dancing with another man downstairs. Keep these names in mind. Bill's subconscious has already taken note. After they return from the party, Bill and Alice start to get intimate before bed, but it's clear Alice isn't really into it. Or rather, Kubrick makes sure this is obvious. At that moment, the screen fades to black, and Chris Isaac's "Baby Did a Bad Bad Thing" begins to play. Baby did a bad, bad thing. We don't see how the rest of the night unfolds, but by the end of the film, it's clear that a failed attempt at intimacy triggered something deep within Bill's subconscious. Up to this point, everything feels consistent: the dialogue, the continuity, the flow. But from here on, things start to unravel into a world of contradictions and uncertainty. After all, that's how dreams work. Bill's dream begins like an ordinary day for Dr. Bill Harford. In this scene, we hear Second Waltz Again, the same piece that opened the film. This hints at a new beginning in the narrative, and the third time we hear it will confirm that. The first strange moment comes during a checkup scene. We see Bill examining one of his patients with a stethoscope, but the patient is almost completely naked. Not exactly how a routine checkup usually works. The dream continues. Later that evening, as they lie in bed, they begin talking about Victor's party. What starts as a conversation about jealousy and the differences between men and women quickly turns toxic. Before we dive into the conversation, let's focus on the ashtray behind Bill. It appears, then disappears. the kind of visual inconsistency you'd expect in a dream. At first, one might think this is just a simple mistake, but we notice the same thing happening in a later scene. For a detail-obsessed director like Kubrick, this is almost certainly intentional, a way of subtly destabilizing the scene's reality. Now back to the scene. During the discussion, Bill tells Alice he trusts her on matters of loyalty and is met with an unexpected, almost exaggerated reaction. Alice then says that during their family vacation that summer, she saw a naval officer in the lobby, and they exchanged glances. After that brief exchange, Alice admits she couldn't shake it. Throughout the rest of the vacation, even during moments when she and Bill made love, talked about Helena, and planned for the future, she couldn't get that glance out of her mind. She even confesses that if she'd had the chance to be with him, even for just one night, she would have given up everything.
I was ready to give up everything. You, Helena, fucking future.
From the outside, Bill seems to have a perfect life. A wife, a family, a respected career. But ever since that glance, something has been bothering him, like a small pebble stuck in his shoe. It was only a brief exchange of glances, yet it becomes an obsession, more than enough to ruin the illusion of his perfect life. After that day, Bill begins to see himself as inadequate, as someone no longer sexually desired by Alice. In his dream, that obsession comes back amplified, spoken back to him as if from Alice herself. What follows are the echoes of his desire for revenge and the manipulations of his own subconscious. After receiving the news of a patient's death, Bill rushes out of the house. When he arrives, he learns that the man's daughter, Marion, has been in love with him for years, and she suddenly kisses him. Soon after, it's her fiancé who arrives, and the three of them share the same frame. In that frame, the resemblance becomes striking. Marion mirrors Alice, and the fiancé resembles Bill. At this point, Marion's interest in Bill reflects Alice's attraction to the naval officer. In his dreams, Bill sees himself as the man who fulfills Alice's fantasies. Additionally, when her fiancé walks in a few minutes later, the decor Bill notices on his left when he first enters the house suddenly disappears. The oddities don't end there. As Bill leaves the house and walks through the streets, he can't help but think about Alice and the officer together. At that moment, a group of young men shove him to the ground and hurl homophobic insults at him. It reflects Bill's insecurity about his masculinity and his fear of how others perceive him. After this incident, Bill meets a young woman named Domino. When she invites him back to her place, it represents his forbidden desires. Just as something is about to happen, Alice calls, and Bill chooses to leave, revealing his inner struggle between loyalty and desire. Bill heads to the club where his old friend Nick is performing, the same friend he ran into at Victor's party. Here, Nick tells Bill about a secret party, awakening Bill's desire to explore his deepest and darkest fantasies. The password to this journey is written on a napkin, Fidelio. In Latin, Fidelio means fidelity, and Bill's dream continues to circle back to where it all began.
What is this? It's the password.
Bill enters a costume shop called Rainbow. The name is no coincidence. Now, let's head back to Victor's party.
Where the rainbow ends.
Where the rainbow ends.
Don't you want to go where the rainbow ends?
In his subconscious, Bill associates rainbow with something inappropriate for a married man. And that association resurfaces almost immediately. Two men trying to seduce a naive girl inside the rainbow shop mirrors Bill's earlier encounter with two women who tried to lure him to the end of the rainbow. After more unsettling moments inside the shop, Bill takes a taxi and heads toward the grand event. Victor's party at the beginning of the film reappears later as something far more extreme, almost like a distorted reflection of Bill's subconscious. We catch several clues suggesting that this second party may also be a creation of Bill's mind. Both parties are exclusive to the elite, and Victor and his wife greet Bill at both. The colors Victor and his wife wear at the first party match the colors of the costumes at the second. Nick plays the piano at both parties, and Mandy, the woman Bill treated at Victor's party, ultimately sacrifices herself to protect him. After witnessing Victor's infidelity, Bill starts to see elites like him as people who pursue their desires without hesitation, risking their marriages and even a young woman's life in the name of pleasure. The two women who try to seduce Bill at Victor's party stand out noticeably from the other guests, which makes Bill wonder what they're really doing there in the first place. He can't help but wonder, is this how these people always entertain themselves? After all, both he and Alice are outsiders to this kind of life.
Why do you think Ziegler invites us to these things every year?
This is why some of the things Bill witnesses at Victor's party feel new and unfamiliar to him. What he sees there, combined with what happened with Alice, becomes fertile ground for his subconscious. Filled with fear and anxiety, Bill leaves the party, and later sees that Alice has experienced it all in her dream. His fear, what if Alice had seen all of this, creates a dream within a dream. Morning comes within the dream, and Bill sets out in search of answers. Bill goes to the hotel to ask about Nick. There, the receptionist shows an exaggerated interest in him, followed by even stranger behavior at the costume shop. For example, the shop owner, Milich, suddenly acts as if nothing happened with the Asian men he had just threatened to report to the police, even going so far as to offer his daughter to Bill. The extremes Bill encounters in his dream mirror his moral conflicts, his complicated feelings about sexuality, and his fear that innocence itself is at risk. Bill ends up back at the mansion, where he receives yet another warning. The message is clear. Accept your guilt and stop resisting. Let go of your obsessions and abandon your desire for revenge. It is the only way, for you and for everyone connected to you. Bill returns home, but he can't escape the obsessive thoughts or the voices. He's trapped inside his own subconscious, and that entrapment only pushes the dream further into nightmare. Bill calls his deceased patient's daughter again, but when her fiancé answers, he hesitates and hangs up. Later, he returns to Domino's apartment. Her roommate answers the door and tells him she's tested positive for HIV. It reflects Bill's growing fear of the dangers and consequences tied to his sexual desires. Then Bill realizes he's being followed by a mysterious man, a manifestation of his paranoia and the fears lurking in his subconscious. After buying a newspaper, he goes to a cafe and finds out that the woman who saved him at the party has died. And Bill's dream has truly turned into a nightmare. From the moment the dream begins, it's striking that every woman who interacts with Bill seems to resemble Alice. Marion, Domino, Mandy, Milich's daughter, and Domino's friend. All of these women function as different reflections of Alice within Bill's subconscious. Each one brings his deepest fears about loyalty, morality, and desire to the surface. Through these reflections of Alice, we gain a deeper glimpse into Bill's inner world and the complexity of his subconscious. Bill goes to Victor in search of answers, leading us to the scene where the film's mystery begins to unravel. Victor tells Bill that everything he experienced was just a setup to scare him. As he reassures Bill that everything is under control and that he's not in danger, he subtly reinforces his authority over him. In this moment, Victor takes on the role of a father figure, a symbol of authority in Bill's life. In front of him, Bill feels small and begins to question himself. Victor's calm, calculated tone only highlights Bill's lack of control and the pressure he feels under authority. Bill questions whether everything he experienced was real, but he struggles to accept it. Instead of clarity, the answers only deepen the uncertainty. This scene, as the film nears its conclusion, almost feels like Kubrick speaking directly to the audience. Victor is a figure who controls, orchestrates, and manipulates events, not unlike a director behind the scenes. When Victor tells Bill that everything was just a game, staged to frighten him, it echoes Kubrick's own role in shaping our experience, guiding our emotions, and keeping us suspended in uncertainty. And Bill, in his search for the truth, begins to resemble the audience, trying to decode the film's reality and its symbols. Like him, we're left navigating layers of uncertainty and ambiguity.
You called it a fake, a charade. Do you mind telling me what kind of fucking charade ends with somebody turning up dead?
At dawn, Bill returns home and sees the mask from the party lying beside Alice. In shock, he wakes from the nightmare and begins confessing everything he saw. After everything that's happened, we return to something that feels like reality. The family out Christmas shopping. Bill's guilt spills into his words and into his body language. Alice tells him that whether it was real or just a dream, they should be grateful that they're still here, still together. Kubrick constructs a world where reality, dreams, and fantasies overlap, nearly indistinguishable from one another. And in the final moments, he lets a character give voice to that idea. When Bill asks Alice if she's sure, she responds,
Only as sure as I am that the reality of one night, let alone that of a whole lifetime.
To Alice, whether it's a single night or an entire lifetime, reality can never be completely known. Bill responds, No dream is ever just a dream. Alice says that no matter what happened, the important thing is that they're awake now, and she wants to stay that way for as long as possible. And for Alice, despite everything, the way forward is obvious.
Fuck.
That word became the final word ever spoken in a Stanley Kubrick film. After that word, Second Waltz plays for the third time in the film. The first time marks the beginning of the film. The second marks the beginning of the dream. And the third signals the start of a new chapter in Bill and Alice's relationship. Bill wrestles with feelings of inadequacy, with not feeling masculine enough. And in his subconscious, Alice's fantasy begins to feel real, forcing him to confront how he's meant to respond. The attention from his patients, a chance encounter on the street, the environments he could step into. Maybe he told himself, I could do it too. What's the worst that could happen? But he also realized that if he gave in to one of his patients' advances, the guilt would follow immediately, just as it did when her fiancé walked through the door. If he got involved with any woman he met on the street, it wouldn't just weigh on his conscience. It could carry real physical consequences. Even being in a place where he didn't belong could put an innocent person at risk. Yes, temptation seemed to surround him at every turn, but the consequences could be heavier than he ever imagined. Fortunately, it was all just a dream, but we know that no dream is ever just a dream. But what is a fantasy really? And how much can the fantasies we create affect the people we're morally responsible for? Is a desire we bury in our subconscious any different from a fantasy we choose to keep inside? These are only a few of the many questions the film leaves us with. Some we answer, others we don't. But one thing becomes clear. Any line we try to draw between reality and illusion is never entirely accurate. Because maybe that line doesn't truly exist. Whether something is real, a dream, or a fantasy isn't enough to define its meaning. Everything only makes sense within its own context. Eyes Wide Shut is a multi-layered story that reveals new dimensions every time you watch it. It took Kubrick nearly 30 years to bring this film to the screen, and 3 years to shoot it. Even the symbolism contained in the party scene alone could warrant an entirely separate video. In this video, we approach the film through the idea that everything might be a dream. Even through that lens, we still uncovered new clues scattered throughout the film. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the film's shifting balance between reality, dreams, and fantasy. For more movie content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Film Frame.